Hello and welcome. If you're a nonprofit leader and you're fundraising in Virginia, you know that keeping up with compliance can be a real challenge. So today, we're going to break down the state's charitable solicitation registration requirements step by step, so you can stay focused on your mission. Now, this is part of our multi-state fundraising compliance series, which is all about giving nonprofit leaders like you some practical, clear guidance on these, well, let's face it, pretty complex regulations. This particular resource is brought to you by the experts at Ironwood Registrations. Okay, let's just jump right in. If there's one thing you take away from this today, let it be this. In Virginia, you have to register before you start asking for donations. It's a proactive requirement, not a retroactive one. And, getting this wrong can create some major compliance headaches down the line. So to make sure that doesn't happen to you, we're going to walk through the whole process. We'll start with the core registration rules. Then we'll get into the initial filing and the annual renewals. After that, we'll look at some common exemptions, and we'll wrap up with the specific rules for out-of-state nonprofits. First up, Virginia's registration rules. Let's figure out who actually needs to register and which state agency is in charge of all this. The main agency you need to know in Virginia is the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, or VDACS for short. Now, within that department, it's a specific group called the Office of Charitable and Regulatory Programs, the OCRP, that's going to be reviewing your filings and managing your registration. And that, of course, leads us to the big question, right? Who exactly has to register? Does your organization fall into this bucket? So here's the most important thing to get your head around. Virginia's rules are all about where your donors are, not where your nonprofit is. That means it doesn't matter if you're based in Richmond or, San Francisco. If you're asking Virginians for money, you've got to register. Pretty much any campaign that reaches donors in the state can trigger this. And you should know, Virginia's definition of solicitation is really, really broad. We're not just talking about old-school direct mail or phone calls. It absolutely includes your online Donate Now button, any email blasts you send out, social media campaigns asking for support, and of course, any fundraising events you hold in the state. Okay, so you've figured out you need to register. What does that actually look like? Let's dig into the initial filing process, including all the documents and fees you're going to need. As you can imagine, the initial registration packet is pretty thorough. You'll start with either Virginia's own Form 102 or the Unified Registration Statement. Then, you'll need your core corporate documents. That's your articles of incorporation and bylaws, plus your IRS determination letter and a list of your officers. And here's a key detail to watch out for. Virginia requires your full IRS Form 990. They will not accept the short 990N postcard. When it comes to fees, Virginia uses a tiered structure based on your gross contributions. You can see it's designed to be pretty affordable for smaller organizations, starting at just $30. From there, the fee scales up, topping out at $325 for organizations that raise over $1 million. And just keep in mind, on top of that annual tiered fee, there's also a standard one-time $100 initial registration fee that all new applicants have to pay. Getting registered is really just step one. So now let's talk about the annual renewals and deadlines, because this is absolutely critical for staying compliant year after year. It's pretty straightforward, but so important. Your registration in Virginia is only good for 1 year. If you want to keep soliciting legally, you have to renew it every single year. And the deadline is always the same. Your renewal filing is due 4.5 months after your organization's fiscal year ends. So, for example, if your fiscal year ends on December 31st, that renewal is due by May 15th. And what happens if you miss that deadline? Well, there's a penalty. Virginia will charge a $100 late fee for any filing that's not submitted on time. It's a really easy cost to avoid. You just have to mark your calendar. So, what if you're listening to all this and thinking, maybe we don't need to register? That brings us to our next section. Common registration exemptions. Let's see if there are any off-ramps for you. Now, this is a really key distinction in Virginia's law. There are basically two kinds of exemptions. A very small number of organizations, like certain religious groups, are fully exempt. They don't have to file anything at all. But, and this is a big but, most other organizations that qualify for an exemption still have to file a Form 100, and pay a $10 fee to claim that status. A lot of nonprofits miss that step. So who has to file that Form 100? Well, this would include small nonprofits raising less than $5,000 a year with only unpaid volunteers. It also applies if you're only going after grants from foundations, corporations, or the government, or if you keep your fundraising to just 5 or fewer local areas within Virginia.
All right, let's tackle a topic that trips up a lot of organizations: the rules for out-of-state nonprofits. What do you have to do if you aren't physically located in Virginia?
The rule here is really simple and clear. It doesn't matter where your office is. If you're asking for donations from people who live in Virginia, whether it's through your website, an email, or anything else, you are required to register with the state, period. But here is some good news for all you out-of-state filers. Unlike a lot of other states, Virginia does not require you to go out and hire a registered agent just for this. By default, the Secretary of the Commonwealth acts as your agent for any legal notices, which honestly just simplifies the whole process.
So let's pull all this together. What are the key takeaways for staying compliant in Virginia? First, and I can't say it enough, register before you ask for a single dollar. Second, track that annual renewal deadline like a hawk. Third, always submit a full Form 990, not the 990N. And finally, if you think you qualify for an exemption, make sure you actually file to claim it.
At the end of the day, Virginia's laws are all about protecting donors, and your compliance is how you maintain their trust. As fundraising goes national, managing these rules in state after state can become a huge task. If you'd like some expert help making sure your organization stays compliant without getting sidetracked from your mission, you can learn more at ironwoodregistrations.com.